The Penre Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The third level of learning, the rise of the machine kingdom. http://wespenre.com. The third level of learning. Paper number 1, In the Aftermath of the Nano Second. By Penre, Saturday, January 19, 2013. Updated, January 22, 2013. http://wespenre.com. 1. Follow your passion. Since I completed the second level of learning, I have spent my time doing a lot of research, and I mean a lot. And not only that, I did research for 2 different levels at the same time. My intention was to let this third level of learning become a pure spiritual level, which dealt with the mechanics how to become multidimensional while still being here in a body in the third density. In fact, I did find a way that really seems to do the trick, and I was very excited. I passionately continued researching this subject and others that were related to it, but at the same time I discovered a lot of new information pertaining to the material I released on the second level of learning, level 2 from here on. The information felt so important that I just couldn't let go of it. So I researched that as well on the side, unintentionally creating 2 levels of learning in parallel. I was really in doubt what I should do for quite a while. Should I update level 2 with the new material, which would make it as massive as level I, or should I just not publish the material and go for the spiritual research instead, like I'd intended to begin with, and let that become level 3? For a while, that's what I decided to do. However, somehow, things started going slow. I never seemed to get anywhere. It was not that there wasn't enough material to research to build a whole level of learning, but there were so many distractions of different kinds that I never seemed to be able to start researching. So I decided to take a break for a few days to do something totally different. One thing I had started on earlier, and now discarded, was to dig into the channeled material and the galactic federations, where there is a lot of information that is very important for people to know. And not only that, we need to know which ones are purposely deceptive and which ones are not, and we also need to know the mechanics behind it all, because I saw way too many people getting sucked into very dark stuff, thinking it was positive. So, out of nowhere I got this idea I should listen to a Basher lecture just to relax, in order to more easily being able to resolve the dilemma of what to do. I noticed this morning that the particular lecture I was listening to is unfortunately taken offline. It used to be here, http://www.ashtacommandcrew.net/forum/topics/soul-potential-basha-r-benarion. Unfortunate in a way, but there are other Basher lectures stressing the same thing, if the reader is interested. Anyway, I was sitting there listening when a person in the audience asked a question. She said she had a lot of different passions in life, but for some reason she didn't finish a project until she started on a new, because she had so many passions. She was an artist, I think, and before she was done with one project, she got ideas for a new one and therefore abandoned the old one, believing she didn't have enough time to do it all. Then it often ended up with that she instead didn't complete any of them. Basher told her that time is not an issue, there is time for everything. We won't leave this lifetime until our goals are fulfilled, or when we know we failed fulfilling them and want to try again by starting a new life. So he advised her to take one passion at the time and take it as far as she could or wanted to, and then finish it and start the next. This really hit the nail on the head for me. Not only am I a Gemini, whom they say have a lot of projects going simultaneously, I am also a typical Gemini, having several half-read books on my bed table, and different projects going at the same time. Normally I complete them, but not without a problem similar to what this artist had. So I realized that I was not finished with what I had brought up in level 2, and although I have a great passion for the spiritual level I was about to finish researching, my thoughts often went back to the Assyrian agenda and the additional, important information I'd found on that subject. I now understood that I had to put the spiritual research on the shelf for a while and complete what I had previously started with level 2, and take it as far as I need, which will pretty much be a whole new level of learning. And interestingly enough, I feel I have a lot of passion to do so. So now, my final decision is this: Level 3, which you are now reading the first part of, will take off where Level 2 ended. Then, when Level 3 is published, I am done with my series of papers. Nothing more will be posted at http://wespenre.com, except potential corrections and smaller updates. My next step after that will be to open up a new domain, or a subdomain to wespenre.com, perhaps, where I will publish my future books. Yes, the spiritual level, which was supposed to be level 3, will instead of a series of papers become one or more books. The way it looks like now, I will not charge for my books either, but publish them in a similar fashion that I've published my papers, and also present a PDF version of the whole book for the reader to download for free. Any voluntary donation is always welcome, but not at all mandatory. 2. Our most common mistakes as truth seekers. During my years of research, I have seen people make some fundamental mistakes that I want to talk a little bit about before we move on to the real subjects. I talk out of experience, because I have made some of these mistakes myself, but came to my senses. I like to bring them up, because they will stop people from finding the truth. So please bear with me for a while. Those who have read my articles and papers over the years know how I'm working. My articles, postings, and papers show my own progress as a truth seeker on planet Earth in the 20th and 21st century. If someone wants to see how I was thinking 5 years ago, they can go back and search for stuff I was occupied with then and see where in the process I was at the time. It's one man's journey through the third density with the aim at becoming a true multidimensional being, free from the slavery created by the Syrians and their human minions. I sometimes don't delete or correct the mistakes in my older writings unless they are very glaring and obviously very misleading. Instead, I correct them in my future writings, referring back to the errors I made in the past. The reason for this is that I always learn something from my mistakes, and count on that the readers will, too. Sometimes I learned more from those than the things I got correct. It's quite interesting how things work sometimes. My point with telling you all this is to once again stress that this is my research and my own conclusions that are building my view on the universe, and my place in it. When you read it, I would like you to feel in your gut if what you learn feels right for you or not. The more you start thinking in these terms and trust your body as a truth and lie detector, the easier it will be, eventually, to quickly know what is supporting you in your quest and what is not. This goes for all material you read, by me or by others. And in this area lies one of the mistakes I want to bring up. It's very easy to swallow it all just because a piece of material feels right on target. Be critical of every paragraph, take in what feels right and discard what doesn't. Just because it works for me, it doesn't necessarily work for you. If it does, wonderful. If it doesn't, there are other paths leading out of the jungle, I'm sure. However, if you have followed me thus far, you must have found more than a few items that indicates for you, or you wouldn't have plowed through 1,500 pages worth of research. But always feel things out, your body will tell you what is true or not. Don't swallow things because they are intriguing and exciting. It's easy to do, but again, your body will tell you if you listen to it. And here is another glaring mistake, and it has to do with our belief systems. Everybody has their belief systems, even those who say they don't. If not, they wouldn't be here. It's okay to have them, and even necessary, actually. It's through our belief systems we are experiencing ourselves in the multiverse, and it's through them we learn and build realities. The problem with them is when they become fixed. We see this quite often when it comes to religious people. They think they know it all. And with religious people I also include much of the New Age movement. It's very important that we let our belief system be fluid and not fixed, so that we always are willing to change in order to evolve to the next level. And I see way too often how people are forcing their own belief systems on others, and most of those who are doing so are not even aware of it, or that something is wrong with it. This, of course, is very obvious when we read threads on different forums. Remember, everybody is entitled to their own belief systems even if they are fixed. We all have our own pace when it comes to learning, and those who are stuck in a certain belief system will sooner or later snap out of it. But not until they are ready to, and it could take another year, or another 1,000 years. Either way, everybody needs to learn at their own speed or lack thereof. It's okay to share our experiences and give advice when asked for, but every time we see a lively debate on a forum, for example, it's because people are forcing their belief systems on each other. In order to defend their own belief system, people can get pretty nasty with each other. Next thing has to do with disinfo agents. Let's just face it, they are everywhere where important truths are told. However, what we are taught is to avoid disinfo agents like the plague once they're spotted. And as soon as someone is stumbling on some new material, they are anxiously wondering if this could be a new disinfo agent. Big mistake. When I hear that a certain website is run by a disinfo agent, I almost always go there to check it out, because I know that these people are telling us a lot of true things, or they wouldn't be disinfo agents. There is a difference between disinformation and misinformation. The latter is telling you lies, while the former usually is telling you the truth with a twist to it in order to lead people astray. Then, if the disinfo agent is spotted, people are told to avoid him or her with all their might. This is so that people will not see the truth in their information. Hence, I may look through the site of a disinfo agent very carefully, because I suspect there may be things there that I can learn from. Unfortunately, people who fall victim to a disinfo agent and makes the mistake to post some of the inaccurate information are likewise avoided after the disinfo agent is spotted, as if the truth seeker suddenly doesn't have anything of value to say. Still, before he or she fell victim to the disinfo campaign, they were popular and known to bring truth to the public. This is not only very sad but also a dangerous path to go down, because this is exactly what the disinformation campaigns are designed to accomplish. The agenda I've just described not only stops people from seeing the truth in the disinfo campaign, but is also stopping the same people from seeing the truth in well-meaning and honest truth seekers material, those who fell victim to the disinfo agent. And lastly, watch out for professional debunkers. There are a lot of such people, too, employed by the government to debunk people's research. And they know what they are doing. Of course, this doesn't mean we shouldn't be critical when we see something that doesn't feel right, but these debunkers are screaming for proof when the proof is in the pudding. They always want documented evidence on any new idea that shakes the status quo. And how can you give documented evidence on something that's metaphysical? Still, when no documented evidence is provided, the debunker claims he or she has debunked the matter. Unfortunately, many fall for this. As a matter of fact, what the debunker does is very clever. When people start thinking outside the box, leaving the material world and begin to look into other realities, the debunker quickly brings the person back into the analytical mind and back into the trap. You don't need others to debunk anything, you are your own debunker. 3. Responses thus far. I also want to thank everybody who have responded to, and commented on the 2 first levels. I have had overwhelmingly great responses, and those who have commented have often had very good insights, many of them which I have learned a lot from. Level 2 was very different from Level I, and I was not sure what kind of response I was going to get from it. Much of the information in there has never been released here on Earth before. Although some of it may still be hidden in the upper levels of certain secret societies, none of that has made it out in public domain. For the record, I want the reader to know that it hasn't always been easy. I have been subjected to quite some psychic attacks, especially while posting the last few papers in Level 2, and all the way up to this day. I think I have finally found a good way to ground myself and put a bubble around me, but also stated my boundaries in order to be left alone in dream state. Some attacks have been pretty vicious, and always metaphysical, but I believe I know where they come from, and lately they have diminished considerably. I hope that those who patiently read Level I and 2 will also stay with me here on Level 3 and read the book, to follow as well, which I think will be of great help for those who want to become multi-deep but don't really know where to go from here. So hang in there, the future is bright, brighter than we may think, considering everything that's going on behind the scenes. 4. What actually happened in 2012? When you read this, the nanosecond is over. It officially ended on December 21, 2012. Just like at Y2K, the year 2000, the expectations were great and diverse. Some expected rapture, others ascension, some thought it would literally be the end of the world, while others thought the Earth would transform into a higher dimension or density. Others yet were expecting prophecy to be fulfilled, perhaps the beginning of the Battle of Armageddon, or an alien invasion. Not to speak about the return of Nibiru. There was more, but I think I covered the most common beliefs. So what happened? Was this just another Y2K, passing by like a breeze, and nothing really happened? Many people probably think this is the case, because they are still here and there are no radical changes from what they can see. Just another hoax? Not at all. The year 2012 was not like the year 2000, we really did complete a cycle and have now started anew. I have first-hand experiences, so I have no doubt, but I will quickly bring up a few things already now that I have noticed and which I know we all have gone through, whether we are aware of it or not. The most important thing is the nanosecond, the time period between 1987 to 2012, when time incrementally sped up, a little in the beginning to a millionfold at the end, and I'm going to explain what is meant by that. The term nanosecond was invented by Barbara Marciniak's Pleiadians to name the time period when time sped up due to the end of this cycle we are talking about and because of the alignment with the galactic center. The nanosecond had basically three phases. They were 1987 to 1996, 1997 to 2008, and 2009 to 2012. These dates are approximate and may fluctuate a year or so in either direction. But the important thing is that the first phase was the basic awakening, when people started realizing that things were not the way they had been told in school and by their parents. What happened in the 1960s was the forerunner to this. In the first phase, many started researching in order to find out what felt so wrong with their lives. Time started speeding up, and by the end of phase 1, it had sped up 100-fold. During phase 2 things started happening even more rapidly. Time eventually sped up 10,000-fold. People became much more aware, not only to the fact that we are run by a shadow government, the so-called Illuminati, but more and more people started realizing that we were visited by beings from other planets, and that the Illuminati families were not the top of the pyramid. During phase 3, people woke up incredibly fast, as time sped up 1,000,000-fold. Many were ready to learn what is really going on in this world and beyond, and droves of very young people woke up almost overnight and found themselves knowing a lot of things they weren't aware of before. They learned a lot faster than the generation before them. They have by some been coined the nano children. So what does it mean that time speeds up 1,000,000-fold? Most of us, when we think back, can see that everything became much more hectic during the nanosecond, and life was indeed much more stressful than before 1987. Those who were born in the nanosecond have a hard time grasping this, because they have no frame of reference as it is all they know. Not everybody were able to handle it and actually vacated their bodies and left the earth plane. However, when we talk about 1,000,000-fold, we basically talk about the learning process. If we look at it from that perspective, those who decided to wake up and started using their increased consciousness learned more during these 25 years than they had done during 1,000,000 years previous to that. Sound unbelievable? Well, think about it. Take a journey in your mind, back in time across the centuries and the millennia. Then you can see how little we actually learned during that vast time span compared to how much we learned during the nanosecond. That's what we mean when we say that time was speeding up. The nanosecond was wild in many ways. We already know that we live in a free will zone where everything goes, but during the nanosecond this was taken to its extremes. There were unexplainable weather and earth changes, insanity, financial collapse, crimes revealed in the upper echelons of society, evidence of aliens among us, confusion, personal traumas, dramas, unexplainable happenstances, but also great gains in consciousness with lots of epiphanies and experiences left and right, often following one another in an enormous speed. The common denominator was that we rarely had time to sit down to think about what we had learned. Before we had the chance to reflect, we learned something new again and again and again. It was sometimes quite overwhelming. Also, in the unseen worlds of non-physical beings a lot of things happened. We, who were down here on Earth during this time period, must call ourselves lucky, because it was not easy to get a body. The population grew rapidly until it now has peaked at around 7 billion people, but the spirits who were waiting to take bodies here on Earth way exceeded that amount. Never before have so many star beings wanted to incarnate on our planet. Why is that? The answer is simple. Star beings came from all across the universe to participate in the big party. Never before in the history of this universe had a being such an opportunity to come down here in the physical world and learn 1,000,000 times more in a few linear years than they may have done over a 1,000,000-year time period. This was very attractive to many, many star beings, and many ETS incarnated here, we know that for a fact. Many of them took baby bodies just like any human soul, while others who were lazier hitchhiked by attaching themselves to humans, hoping to learn that way. Many people all of a sudden walked around with attachments without even knowing it, pulling the energy from the host, or on rare occasion, kicked the original soul out and took over something which is looked upon as a serious crime in the universe in general. Still, many non-physicals, and many souls of the human soul group whose body died before the nanosecond found that there were no body down here for them to take. The line was too long, so they just had to hang around. Still, those who never managed to take a body here could still benefit by hovering in the earth planes or in the astral and learn a lot by just observing. This is how wild the nanosecond was. Although most people weren't aware of what actually happened, all they knew was that something was out of the ordinary. I had person after person tell me that, people who had never picked up a conspiracy book in their lives, or read any spiritual material. So the nanosecond affected everybody across the whole spectrum of the human soul group. For those who need a refresher on the more technical circumstances that made the nanosecond happen may want to read the following few paragraphs. What actually happened around 1987 to 2012 was that our solar system got in alignment with the galactic center of the Milky Way galaxy, of which Earth belongs. A lot of energy was released because of this, and gamma rays were bombarding us here on Earth, both from our own sun, other suns in other solar systems, but mainly from the giant sun in the galactic core, which is actually a cluster of perhaps millions of suns, which are so close together that the long distance of 26 to 30,000 light-years make them seem like one big sun. These gamma rays, and other rays of the spectrum as well, affected our DNA in a very profound way, which enhanced our abilities and increased our consciousness and our awareness many-fold. This had a profound effect, not only on individuals, but on the whole mass consciousness, which is the common consciousness for the whole human races. Our mass consciousness in its turn had a profound effect on other systems many light years away. It was a great awakening in many parts of the universe. But we, who were in bodies here on Earth, experienced it all from ground zero, which was the absolute best place to be, in spite of the negativities going on down here. Although we are still going to be aligned with the galactic sun for another year or so before our solar system will slowly but surely misalign itself again until it happens again, time is going to slow down. In fact, it has already started. If you ask me, it already started before December 21, 12. I could feel a slowdown already in September-October 2012. That was when I became quite sure most of the things that frightened people were not going to happen on December 21. But more on that later. Like a train with its brakes on, time is not going to stop and go back to normal overnight, but will slowly get there. We will now have more time to reflect over what we learned during the nanosecond, and it will be evident that we've reached the post-nano, as I will call it. We will also see that people will vacate more than usual now when the nano is over. Many were just here for the ride, and when it's all over, they leave. It was a soul agreement they had, and before they were born they made the decision to end their lives at the end of, or shortly after the nano. It could be by getting a deadly disease, get in an accident, or anything else in the book. There will also be fewer souls willing to incarnate here when they no longer can gain from the nanosecond, at least as long as the Syrians are in charge here. Therefore, we will see a depopulation happening. We have just about reached the top of human population, and from here on we will probably start seeing a decrease. For different reasons, the male sperm will not be good enough in many men to produce children, and a similar thing will happen in women. Many will become infertile, and this has already started. Upon that, the PTB will also implement more of their own depopulation programs. It has been known for quite a few years that the shadow government has planned such a thing, but it hasn't really been implemented fully yet. We will see more of this. But now, let's discuss a few more things that happened in 2012, and what did not happen. Let us start with what happened. Some of this is subjective, but I think that more than a few readers will agree. Time stopped speeding up. I already mentioned this here above. I started noticing it already in September-October 2012, and by now, when I am writing this in January 2013, I have begun to feel this veil of calmness coming over me, and time is going slower, subjectively speaking, which feels extremely nice. I sense that I can accomplish more in a day than before without having to stress about it. In other words, time has slowed down much more than I had expected. 2. About dreaming. I have vivid dreams. In the beginning of the year they were not so pleasant, as they were actually not normal dreams but psychic attacks. Once I learned how to protect myself, the dreams became much more pleasant. As I have described elsewhere, I used to not remember my dreams, although I knew I accomplished a lot in dreamscape, but now I remember them almost every single night. They are more about traveling to nice places, being lifted up, changing vibrations, communicating with animals, feeling good, and things of this nature. They have become quite consistent and are truly helping me in my daily life. 3. Healing across the lines of time. Many things I felt I needed to work on with myself in my everyday life all of a sudden have worked themselves out. Of course, not without me having worked on them for quite a few years, but I feel that much inside of me has come together to a conclusion, and I have changed in regards to myself and my environment, and I feel it's very positive. Perhaps it is my timelines that have come together. I am not nearly as reactive as I used to be. I see things in the outside world for what it is, and instead of having a defensive or negative reaction to it, I look at it, understand it, and can respond to it without the negative emotions attached. It is very helpful. 4. The end of the Mayan calendar. Yes, this is the end of an old cycle in the Mayan chronology and the beginning of a new. It's not the end of the world, it's not the rapture or the battle of Armageddon. Nor have we been beamed up by aliens and that way ascended to the 4th or 5th dimension. However, something strange but positive seems to have happened. Although the global elite are still in charge of industry and trade, and everything seems to have its usual negative flow in that sense, I feel much more dissociated from it, but not in the sense that I am not confronting it. 5. The alignment with the galactic center. There is no discussion about whether this happened or not, it's scientifically proven. Some say it actually happened much earlier, as far back as in 1998, but it's more or less beside the point, because it's my experience that we didn't gain the full benefits from this incident until closer to winter solstice 2012. Again, I am talking in subjective terms, but I believe that what I mentioned in items 1 to 3 has a lot to do with this alignment, which also brought about 25 years of gamma-ray bombardment, stimulating the development of the so-called junk DNA, which is pretty much the opposite from junk. This, in turn, started the process of reconnecting us to the multiverse, slowly but surely making us more multidimensional, getting our attention more and more away from strict linear thinking. 6. Ascension to a higher density. Well, did we actually ascend during this time period? Are we now in the 4th or 5th density? If I said no, that would probably be true, and if I said yes, that would probably be true as well. We are going to discuss a lot of different channeled entities in this level of learning, because they have a lot to teach us, regardless if they have good or bad intentions. By studying them separately and then compare them, I got some important insights, but more about that later. The reason I'm saying this now is because most of those channeled entities are talking about ascension in one form or another. One thing they do is to clearly distinguish between the densities, like if there would be some kind of door you opened, and all of a sudden you are in 4th density. And once you're there, things are immediately very different, so different, in fact, that it will meet you with total surprise and confusion in the beginning, until you get used to your new reality. I don't see it happen like that at all. We earn our higher vibrations successively and incrementally as we go along and learn more and practice what we've learned. I've said this before, but want to say it again, the different densities are just labels so we can easier understand that we are moving in the right direction. For example, if we are in the 4th density, many say it's the density of compassion and understanding, and that means that if you feel your attention is on compassion and understanding, you already are in what is labeled the 4th density. The problem starts when we begin to label these things, because it creates strict boundaries that are not there in reality. I agree that when we focus on compassion and understanding we have reached a new level in our evolvement, and sometimes, for some of us, it may be interesting to see what the next step up contains, but at the same time it may be quite irrelevant, because we are all different, and it is my conviction, from what I have seen, that people can have their focus in many different densities at the same time, if we follow the label system of these channeled star races. So, in my own opinion, these labels become quite obsolete. Then, when they say we are to spend perhaps 1,000,000 years in one density, working on basically one or two things, it does create the reality for those who believe in this, and from where I sit, it sounds like going from one prison to another. We don't have to go through 7 or 15 densities in order to accomplish what each of those densities say we are to learn there. All we need is to break free from the Syrian control system and the rest will come rather easy for us. It's not that complicated. The most complicated part is to break out of the system. Once that is done, the rest will fall in place naturally. Many of these channeled entities are using these labels to keep us in the trap, making it sound very hard to be a galactic citizen when all it takes is some personal responsibility and group responsibility. The rest comes in time when the individual is ready. In the meantime, we should all be able to take advantage of our abilities to travel in space on a nano level from inside our divine bodies as described in level 2. So does this mean we did not ascend then? If so, shouldn't this be listed under things that did not happen in 2012? Well, the word ascend is defined as follows at dictionary.com. Verb, used without object. 1 to move, climb, or go upward, mount, rise, the airplane ascended into the clouds. 2 to slant upward. 3 to rise to a higher point, rank, or degree, proceed from an inferior to a superior degree or level, to ascend to the presidency. 4 to go toward the source or beginning, go back in time. 5. Music. To rise in pitch, pass from any tone to a higher one. In a sense, all 5 definitions applies to what I feel I have accomplished, and I have seen a lot of other people accomplish the same thing, so I think many people around the world have ascended. The difference between what I mean by ascension compared to the channeled entities is that I don't see that an elite of humans have risen/ascended to a fixed space where only those who are service to others, enough are allowed to follow, while the rest have been dumped somewhere else, on another less desirable planet. The latter sounds like Syrian's elitism all over again. So please relax if you feel you haven't ascended in the way the channeled star beings have taught you. If you are reading this right now, you are well on your way to break out of the system, which is all it is about at this point. Once this has been properly done, which may take a few generations, the splitting of the worlds I talked about in level I and 2 will take place in its real sense, and the negative control system will no longer exist in our reality. But to fully experience this, we may have to reincarnate again, once or twice or so. Still, we're now breaking ground for those new generations to come after us, and if we don't do that, there is only a machine kingdom to return to a few generations from now, and that's the beginning of the end to the human species. It's that direct and simple. It's all about choices, and there are no right or wrong ones, only choices. We evolve in our own speed, and we create our own reality. First there is a certain awakening to that something is wrong with the world, then there is the step to educate oneself and more our chakras start opening up. From there on, it usually only goes forward and upwards. So in summary, I think many of us are working instinctively on compassion and understanding and have thus gained a lot of wisdom, which is supposedly the fifth density in some schools of learning, and if we look at other labeled densities, we have gained a lot in almost all of them. However, we are still here in our bodies, here on Earth, and that's the whole thing as I see it. We can reach higher densities/vibrations and all that it contains, but still be anchored/grounded in our physical bodies, if we so wish. Our physical bodies have potentials far beyond our wildest imaginations. If this is true, and I feel it is very possible to evolve in spite of the Syrian control system. We can't, and shouldn't, fight them, instead we focus on what we want to create and ignore them in our daily life once we understand the mechanics of the trap, and the control system on an individual basis falls apart. Then, when enough individuals accomplish the same thing, a split in realities occurs. This is what the Syrians are most afraid of. They don't care about losing a few individual slaves along the way, but they are afraid that enough individuals will evolve so it may distort and shake their system of control. And that's exactly what we're doing. There is a reason, however, why it doesn't happen even faster, and that reason is called HAARP. Many say it's a weather manipulation device, which it is on one level, but it is also designed to change our brain waves. In order to keep us in 3D, the Syrians have given the military the technology to create this monster, which sends out so-called extra low frequencies, ELFs, across the planet. Unfortunately, from their point of view, it's not working as they anticipated, because people are waking up in spite. 7. The alien invasion. Yes, I put this category under things that did happen, because I believe it did at least to a large degree. In level I talked about the fulfilling of prophecy, and I anticipated the Battle of Armageddon and the return of the gods. I envisioned them coming down in spaceships and start a physical war that would be devastating and kill most of the population. This is basically what is promoted by disinfo agents out there, who have taken over the field of prophecy fulfillment. Many otherwise good researchers have fallen for this and spread disinformation on the internet and in books. I fell for it myself for a while. However, since then I have learned that the disinfo agents, who are from different intelligence agencies around the world, want to distract us, and have us look up in the sky for armadas of UFOs storming down from the heavens, when in fact the invasion happened, and I believe is still happening. It's not completed, on a nano level. Star beings, belonging to the Syrian alliance, have created bodies through genetic manipulation, which contain a lot of their own genes enough so that these beings can incarnate into them and mingle with the rest of humanity without drawing attention to themselves. They have in fact improved old bloodlines, but also created new ones, and let these bloodlines recreate, while their babies are being inhabited by souls of the Syrian alliance. This is an ongoing process, but I think that with the alignment with the galactic center and everything that happened around it, a mass invasion took place, because it was basically the right time. We will discuss this in detail as well in this level of learning. Now let's list a few things that were supposed to happen that did not happen. 1. The return of Nibiru. This is also something I will expand on later. I know we have discussed this subject quite a bit in the other levels of learning, but it deserves more attention, because this is a big deception with many layers to it, more than I was aware of when I wrote level I and II. All I want to say in this first paper is that Nibiru did not return in 2012, evidently, and will not return anytime soon, either. And Nibiru, in the sense of being the home planet of the Syrians, Anunnaki, does not even exist, so obviously Sitchin's Nibiru will never return. So, is there another aspect of Nibiru or Planet X that's more likely to show up? Well, it depends on how we define it. They told us in the news recently that an asteroid was spotted in the solar system in 2012, and will come quite close to Earth in February 2013, about a month from when I am writing this. On the other hand, NASA is reassuring us that its crossing will not affect our planet in any negative sense too, if we can trust that or not, but I feel they are right this time. Figure 1. Figure 1. The path of the February 2013 asteroid DA14, click on image to enlarge. So what does this have to do with Nibiru? Nothing, except that this may be one aspect of what the whole Nibiru issue is about. From my research, the reader is aware of that the Sirian and their assisting star races are traveling in hollowed-out asteroids, planetoids, and planets. We have no guarantees if DA14, the incoming asteroid, may be a spaceship or just a natural celestial body. There is no way for us to know. And like I said in Level 2, Nibiru is most probably just another hollowed-out planetary body that the Sirians use, one of thousands. There are more aspects of Nibiru that we should take a look at in a later paper, so this will suffice it for now. 2. The Battle of Armageddon and the End of the World. Obviously, the world is still here. Some speculate that a version of Earth actually did blow to pieces, or however we want to describe it, but that's not the version we live in. Whatever the matter is with that, the thing is that we are still here, and so is our planet. According to some, it shouldn't be. The most stunning disinformation I've ever seen, I believe, is the following: there are 2 Russian scientists who were all over the news, covered by the Examiner 413, saying that the end of the world should have started in March 2012. The names of the scientists are Victoria Popova, Dr. SC. Ph.D., Professor, and Lydia Andrianova, Ph.D. I think Victoria was the one of the two who also was the first Russian cosmonaut in space. They claim they are in contact with ETS, whom they are channeling. These ETS are helping them decoding the crop circles, and they were saying that Earth will blow to pieces and we have to make the transition to a higher dimension right now, or it's too late. We have to get rid of our material things and repent very quickly, because before we ascend we have to go through a 1,000 years worth of judgment in an in-between area of time and space. Of course, the best way to repent is to donate to their website. Yes, you read that correctly. Figure 2. Professor Victoria Popova, and Lydia Andrianova, Ph.D. When nothing happened in March, they changed the date to September, then to October, and after that to December 21, 2012. When nothing happened then either, they irresponsibly said that the first step of the cataclysm was happening on December 21, but the real cataclysm will happen in 2013. Their website is the most outrageous thing that's out there, I believe, but it's also very dangerous, because these two women have quite some prominent background with lots of patents on personal inventions, and are holding very high positions in the Russian society. However, their irresponsibility and deceptive nature is remarkable to say the least. Their biographies are here, http://www.ourtransition.info/index.php $?com_content &view =article &id =135 &item id =8 lang =n and their home page here, http://www.ourtransition.info. I bring this up so people can warn other from them. Although their deception is so obvious, many fall for this. 3. The harvest. Not all channeled star beings / collectives that are promoting the harvest said it was going to happen on December 21, 2012, but many told us it would be an approximate time. The more advanced channels know better than giving an exact date for many reasons, but one major reason would be because we humans have a tendency to change our minds ever so often and therefore also alter the anticipated future, the one the aliens can see when they look into it. There are an infinity of probabilities, and they often operate based on the most probable future, taking our mass consciousness and our anticipated actions into account. 4. The super wave. I include this one here, although I didn't expect it to happen yet anyway, and neither did most other researchers into this phenomenon. The super wave, as I have looked at it, is most likely something aside from the gamma wave from the galactic center. Some physicists believe it has to do with the explosion of a giant supernova, and a huge wave of energy is going to hit Earth in the near future with unpredictable outcome. It doesn't mean that this wave of energy does not originate from the center of the galaxy, however. This phenomenon did not reach the top 10 of apocalyptic events that were anticipated to happen in 2012, from what I could see, although Laura Nightjadchik, who runs the website, http://cassiopeaea.org, wrote 1,639 pages on the subject, all accessible for free on the website. And that's just on one subject. She is calling this a galactic tidal wave upon which a lot of star beings and races are riding, and they are all coming in direction towards Earth intentionally so. This is one possibility what the wave could be. However, the galactic tidal wave is probably the number one apocalyptic event I personally am anticipating in the near future, in spite of the poor attention it has received. Albeit, it seems like it's not the effects from a supernova, but another tidal wave from the galactic center, coming our way, and supposedly harvesting all beings and/or star races ready to ascend to the fourth density. But why am I concerned about this? Doesn't it sound good? It probably does for those who are aware of it and read and listen to certain channeled information, which makes it sound like this is the thing we should be waiting for. The crux, however, is that the entities who are supposedly riding on this wave will allegedly do so to come here to save us. And the wave is apparently not that far away. We may ask ourselves why they are not using stargates or nano travel to come here instead, but the reason, so they say, is that there is no point for them to arrive here in the physical, or in interdimensional form, before the wave. They can communicate with us just as well while riding the super wave. Something to be afraid of? No, not if we know what the intentions are. The only ones who should fear some rumbling in their guts are those who are unaware of this events, or those who are excited about it. And neither category is aware enough to be afraid anyway, not yet. We will talk about this in combination with the galactic federations and channeled entities in upcoming papers. 5. The Second Coming. The reader can probably recall the hysteria behind this, and it is still ongoing, although most people are just catching their breaths right now when the Nano Second and winter solstice are in the past. Many anticipated a rapture earlier and the second coming of Christ around 12/21. Didn't happen. Others said that the second coming had other meanings, but none of these interpretations were fulfilled either. Then I saw on Dr. Henry Makau's website that disinfo agent and 33 Degrees Freemason, Leo Zagami, is screaming his lungs out right now, propagating that 12/21 was the beginning of the tribulation. Oh well. I was talking about the second coming being the return of the old gods, albeit I didn't set this event to happen exactly at winter solstice. Maybe I should have, because I have this eerie feeling in my gut that much of the alien invasion, which I consider has to do with the second coming in Revelation and the Book of Daniel, was completed. At least I believe there was a mass invasion that happened behind the scenes, on a soul level, as described above. Again, I put it here amongst events that did not happen, because if we talk about the traditional interpretations, they didn't happen, and I cannot prove that this spiritual invasion actually happened. And if it did, it's not over yet. Personally, I think the Syrians are behind schedule, and that is thanks to everybody who worked hard on waking up to a higher consciousness. This was a big obstacle in the Syrian plans. I guess those were the most common events people had their attention on. In spite of that, we are past 21/12/12, we still have quite some challenging events in front of us, but the funny thing is that I feel much more relaxed writing this level of learning than I did any of the two previous ones. I have a totally different calm inside of me and don't feel the same urge to get the papers out in a rush as I did before, feeling I was racing against time. I am still writing, however, because what I am about to bring up are very important issues, in my opinion, and things people need to know as well before we can put these challenging issues a little bit aside and concentrate more on spiritual/body/mind subjects in depth, something that will certainly bring us to another level, and hopefully bypass all the negativity that is trying to bring us down because we, up until now, have refused to look at it. These 3 levels of learning can be looked at as catalysts, or springboards to becoming galactic citizens in the not-too-far-away future. Before we move on, I want to say that my heart goes out to all those who had family members or dear friends who lost their lives, perhaps prematurely, during the last period of the nanosecond. I know there are quite a few people out there who can relate to this. You have my empathy, and most of all, remember that many people only came here for the nanosecond. They were lucky enough, just like you and I, to get a body here in this lifetime so we could experience this. However, when the nano was over, or just before, many people got sick and vacated, because they had accomplished what they came for. And just being here means that those people accomplished a lot more than they would have done otherwise in thousands of years. So please understand that all is as it should be in the Goddess universe, and there is always a bigger picture to anything that happens. It doesn't mean we won't miss those who pass over. I had close relatives who died as well near the end of the cycle, and one friend who is alive but terminally ill, so I know.